and welcome to the thorough newspaper analysis for 26th May 2022. For today, we have one article which has been taken from the Hindu and has been authored by Dr. Sonali Vaid and Dr. Sumegha Asthna. Both these doctors come together to discuss on the implications of the recent debate regarding abortion rights. As you know, USA is rife now with arguments and debates because a document has been leaked which states that USA is going to roll back its abortion rights. So both these doctors come together and they discuss on what needs to happen in India so that India does not follow suit on such lines. For the second and the third segment today, we have the news update and the legal news, which you know are a part of LawSikho's initiative to keep its students and readers updated with the current affairs that is happening in and around of India, so that you do not face a difficulty when you're sitting for your prelims examination or any competitive examinations for that matter. So for the first article today, India must shift the disclosure on abortion rights. Now, women, transgenders, and pregnant people struggle to exert their bodily autonomy in India, and this is a fact. Yet, in light of this, people have come forward and has lauded India for having a Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, which was amended in 2021. So, while it's good that we do have a Medical Termination Pregnancy Act, the same is not enough to be lauded for. It is both factually incorrect and it does not show a good faith. Like, we still do have a long way to go. So when the amendment of 2021 was brought in, one of the biggest issues was that only married women were applicable or allowed to have abortions under the 1971 Act. The 2021 Act changed this, and unmarried women were also covered under the ambit of the Act. Further, the gestation period was increased from 20 weeks to 24 weeks. And in case of abnormalities, it went beyond 24 weeks. Apart from that, if the woman's confidentiality was breached, the fine earlier in the 1971 Act was only 1,000 rupees, which was significantly increased in the amendment of 2021, and an imprisonment of 1 year was also brought in. So, but the issue regarding abortion is that we do not, like, when we are celebrating the fact that India does have a Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, we forget the statistics based on which we should be judging the performance of this piece of legislation. So according to the World Health Organization, 6 out of 10 of all unintended pregnancies end in an induced abortion. And 97% of these induced abortions take place in developing countries. Out of these 97% abortions, 45% of all abortions are unsafe. In India, if we're talking specifically of our country, 10% of all maternal deaths are accounted to abortion. 53% of abortions in India are performed in the private sector, while only 27% of abortions are performed by the women herself at home. So this is rather a worrying number. Not only is 53% of abortions in India being performed in private sector, for which we can argue that the proper data is not reflected. And this is because the government sector does not have proper infrastructure or medical facilities to facilitate an abortion safely. This is the reason why people have to rely on the private sector. Further, which is a more problematic issue, is that 27% of abortions are being performed by the woman who is in agony, who is in danger, who does not want the pregnancy. She's doing the abortion herself. According to Lancet, 73% of abortions in India were medication abortions, and many of them are still illegal under the MTP Act. Further, sex selective abortions, or as you know, that we have female feticide, where if we know that like a generation after generation have been doing this, that if they know that if the fetus is a female fetus, they kill it off because no one wants a girl child. So sex selective abortions such as these, social evils like these, could lead to 6.8 million fewer girls being born in India during 2017 to 2030. Now, the issue with the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act and the even these issues even persist after the subsequent amendment in 2021. So the issues are, it does nothing to promote the bodily autonomy and the choice of birth by women, which is basically the prime principle. It's the basic doctrine of an abortion, is that the woman gets to choose whether she wants to go forward with the pregnancy, whether she wants to bring a life into the earth, because it is her body. The MPP does not recognize this bodily autonomy and choice of birth by women's right as such. It only seeks to protect doctors from the charges of induced abortion under IPC. And further, even after 50 years of this legislation, accessing proper adoption care is very difficult. Now, the country has focused on abortion as a means of family planning. And this prerogative of abortion for family planning has to shift to a sexual and reproductive rights issue. It is basically for the women, so let the women decide on it and let it be a sexual and reproductive issue instead of a method used by the government or by families or by both for family planning. Now, reproductive injustice, as we see, we need to keep this in mind that reproductive injustice anywhere stands as a threat to reproductive injustice everywhere. Now, the reason behind this is that today when we say that USA is probably in talks to roll back their abortion rights, this is seen as a threat to the world. USA is one of the developed countries. USA is considered yet as one of the superpowers in the country, and all global decisions are generally led by USA. So if a country that is this developed, a country that is considered as one of the premier beacons of democracy and respect, if they go back on reproductive justice, this is a threat for all the countries, because soon other countries will also follow suit. On that note, let's come to the news updates for today. Number 1, 40th edition of PRAGATI. Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi chaired the meeting of the 40th edition of PRAGATI, the ICT-based multimodal platform for proactive governance and timely implementation involving center and state governments. In the meeting, 9 agenda items were taken for review, including 8 projects and 1 program. For the second article today, we have Captain Abhilasha Barak becomes the first woman to join the Army Aviation Corps. The 26-year-old from Haryana became the first woman combat aviator of the Indian Army. Captain Abhilasha Barak graduated at the ceremony held at the Combat Army Aviation Training School in Nasik. DG of Army Aviation, A.K. Suri, was the chief guest at the event. Now, if you remember, there was a landmark case by the SC where it was stated that women could finally take part in the ND. If you know which case it was, comment down below. For the third article today, we have the 4th Quad meeting concluded in Japan. Foreign Secretary Vinay Mohan Kwatra today said that the Prime Minister Narendra Modi has concluded his official visit to Japan for the 4th Quad Leaders Summit in Tokyo. In addition to this, Mr. Modi held bilateral meetings with the US President and Prime Ministers of Japan and Australia. Briefing media in Tokyo this evening, Mr. Kwatra said that this was an excellent warmth between the leaders, and during this summit, they all provided productive and meaningful discussions on the same. Now, for the 4th article today, we have Marcos officially declared Philippines' next president. Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has been proclaimed the next president of the Philippines officially by a joint session of Congress following a landslide electoral triumph 36 years after his dictator father was ousted in a pro-democracy uprising. For the legal news today, we have the first one. Yasin Malik sentenced to life imprisonment in terror funding case. A special NIA court in Delhi sentenced Kashmiri separatist leader Yasin Malik to life imprisonment after he was convicted in connection with Jammu and Kashmir terror funding case. Malik did plead guilty and he did not contest the said charges. And the same, you can read about it in NIA versus Hafiz, Muhammad Saeed and others. For the second one today, we have Article 1 of Limitation Act 1963 will not apply to proceedings under IBC 2016, and the same has been held by CLAT in the case of SM Ghogbhai versus Schedulers Logistics India Private Limited. So in this case, CLAT principal bench held that the Article 1 of the Limitation Act is not applicable in case a petition is filed under Section 9 of the IBC. For the third article today, we have something which is very important and sensitizing. Police should not abuse sex workers. Media should not publish their pictures during raids and rescue operations. The Supreme Court issues directions. In the said case, the Supreme Court held the following. Firstly, the police are not supposed to harass or abuse sex workers, both physically and verbally. Secondly, media is not to disclose the identity of the sex workers when they're covering such raids or rescue operations. If they are found to do so, the media shall be charged with voyeurism as stated under section 354C of the IPC. The Press Council of India is supposed to take guidelines on this soon, and the same has been held in the case of Budhadev Karmaskar versus State of West Bengal and others in the Criminal Appeal number 135 of 2010. So this was all for today. For free study materials and TNA PDF slides, please join our Telegram channel, the link of which you can find in the description, or you can also scan the barcode given on your screen at LawSikho tester, this barcode. You can also follow us on our Instagram channels, LawSikho.Judiciary, LawSikho CLAT Prep, and UGCnet_LawSikho. For any further information, please feel free to visit www.lawsikho.com. Thank you.